Okay. We are live on Facebook, waiting for Twitter to kick in, and we are live. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are in the world. I'm Avi Abelo, sitting here today with Sara and Matt, who until 2 minutes ago, I did not know they were brother and sister.
But we are.
But they are.
Yeah.
And a fascinating pair of journalists who are also activists from Budapest, Hungary. And I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot of insight from them, and I think it's very, very important information for all of us to hear about, to learn about. So let's get right into this. Oh, and one last thing I want to introduce. The reason I think it is important to listen to Sara and Matt, and why I think they really understand the situation specifically in Hungary and Eastern Europe, they were very involved in fighting, right? In fighting against the far-right party in Hungary called Jobbik, that really had neo-Nazi terminology and paramilitary groups that really made Hungarians, Jews and Zionist Christians, very, very afraid in Hungary. So they were very active in fighting against the growth of Jobbik, and from what I understand, their activism was very critical in helping Hungarians not vote for Jobbik in the last election, and basically that party is not a threat anymore, and the threats, and actually the physical and verbal threats on a daily basis coming from that party are, I don't know whether non-existent, but on a much lower level in Hungary. So they know the threats of the real far right in Hungary and Eastern Europe. So let's hear from them today. So hello, Matt and Sara.
Hello, Avi.
First of all, welcome to Jerusalem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's great to be here.
Thoughts about Jerusalem? It's your first time back. Sarah's 8th time.
Yes.
What do you think?
It's my first time. We were right here to attend the Jewish Media Summit. They invited Jewish journalists all around the world, and somehow we as Christians also came. But we are a great Zionists, and we support Israel. And as you mentioned, that we are an activist in Hungary, and we are trying to push forward the pro-Israeli agenda in Hungary. So we had to participate in this wonderful event, especially, for example, last day, as you saw on the Avi sites and platforms, that we have met with Reverend Rivlin, the president,
Rivlin, right?
President Rivlin, yeah, and Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. It was a great privilege to meet them. So it was really an exciting couple of days. But I saw really just a little from Jerusalem, so I really have to.
So you have to come back.
Yeah,
you
definitely.
have to come back.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. So, so this is what I want to ask you. The Jewish world is worried about the far right in Eastern Europe. And even in the summit that we were just in, the journalist summit, the media summit, people were voicing concern about the far right in Hungary, calling today's existing government of Hungary far right, and the existing leader, Orban.
Viktor Orban.
So what can you tell the viewers today, whether Jewish or not Jewish, about today's Hungarian party? And is it far right? And is it a government that we should be afraid of for the Jewish or Christian Zionist community in Hungary?
Yeah, but I would like to tell you that if you want to really understand today's government and Viktor Orban, you have to examine the past, examine the history, and how it changed from being partly anti-Semitic to a very pro-Israeli, pro-Jewry person and a pro-Jewry government. I'm working for an organization monitoring anti-Semitism both in Hungary and in Europe. And according to the numbers, since this party was last elected, anti-Semitism is sharply dropping in the country. Yeah. And if you go on the streets, you can meet with many Jews, Orthodox Jews and Reform Jews, as well as Israeli tourists walking on the street without fear. So according to our experiences, today's situation is way better than before. Actually, it's historical how friendly our government is towards the Jewry nowadays. You can look at the renovations of several synagogues in both the countryside and Budapest.
That the government has been involved in renovating Jewish synagogues.
Yes, they were partly funding it, and it was very needed because they were in a very bad shape for decades. And now we can see that they are not just talking about helping Hungarian Jewry, but they are acting on it, and it's really great to see.
I just met nowadays with Tamir Werzberger. He's a liquid foreign coordinator, or I don't know what is the exact position he held. Well, but he's a Jew. He lives in Hungary and he works for Likud. And when Netanyahu visited Budapest last year, which was really a historical visit because this was the first time ever in history that a ruling official PM from Israel visited Budapest, and a ruling official Hungarian PM visited Jerusalem, and it was Viktor Orban and Bibi Netanyahu. And I asked him about this trip. And Tamir said to me that he had to make a list that what Fidesz done and said about Jews and Jewish. What our government,
what your government was doing for the Jewish community in Hungary.
Yes,
to show
that's
Netanyahu.
Yeah. And Tamir made a 16-page long list about what kind of synagogues and museums and memorial centers were renovated by the government.
Wow. Okay, so I'm just again to put things in perspective for people, from what we're hearing from Matt and Sara, again from Budapest, journalists from Budapest, Hungary, people who they themselves fought against the far right Jobbik party in Hungary that is not in power and that has been weakened. That Tamir, this Jewish Likud activist in Hungary, put together a 16-page report of the things that this current Hungarian government has been doing to help the Jewish community and Israel, this current government.
Yeah.
Now, on the first day of the summit, I don't know if you remember, the first day of the summit, there was a panel of journalists with Caroline Glick.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Caroline Glick said something very powerful, and I'm sure you picked up on it.
Yes.
There's a famous journalist, Caroline Glick. If you watch me, I sit with her every week. And Caroline mentioned that Jews in Hungary are not afraid to walk the streets of Hungary wearing their kippot, wearing their Jewish symbols, but yet we are afraid to wear our kippot and external Jewish symbols in France.
Yeah.
Whereas if you read the media, right, it is countries like France of Western Europe that we should not be afraid of being anti-Israel or anti-Semitic, but we're supposed to be afraid of Hungary. But when you actually use that example, where a Jew is able to walk freely and not be afraid with his yarmulke, his kippah, in Hungary, but we are afraid, and I am, if I go to France, I mean, I'm pretty crazy, so I do it anyway. But I'd be with my wife. I mean, we went there 4 years ago. I told my wife I never wanted to go to Paris. No, because I knew France is anti-Semitic. It's going down the toilet. I don't want to go there. My wife was an
That's the romantic capital.
Romantic capital.
Yeah.
She was also an art history. So she studied all this art. I'm like, okay, I'll take you because it's going to be horrible, even going to get worse and worse. I'll take you now. This is like 4 years ago, before there were guards around the Eiffel Tower, right? So I knew it was going to get worse. But for her, I wore a hat because she was going to be afraid if I'd walk with my kippah, with my yarmulke on my head. But the reality on the ground is it's safe for a Jew to walk as a Jew in Hungary, while it's not safe to walk as a Jew in France. But then you read the media and things are totally different and backwards. So my next question is really, what message do you want to give people about not just Hungary, but when everyone, the key buzzword today is anti-Semitism and anti-Semitism in Eastern Europe and the far right growing in Eastern Europe. You're there. What message can you give us, and especially the Jews out there who are worried about this, not just Hungary, but Eastern Europe?
We have to say that anti-Semitism exists in the right and in the far right. That's not an issue of the debate, but we have to realize that in recent years new forms of anti-Semitism is rising. For example, in a political left or the Islamic anti-Semitism, and somehow we are just want to deal with the far right anti-Semitism or the right on the right side, the political right anti-Semitism, and we are just ignoring that the political left is shifted toward anti-Israeli, anti-Zionist, and anti-Semitic narratives, and especially, as you know, we are dealing with a mass immigration crisis, and because of that, a lot of Muslims arriving in Europe, and like it or not, Islam is against Judaism and against the Jewish communities. So this two modern form of anti-Semitism, I think, is the biggest threat than the anti-Semitism in the right, especially in Eastern Europe, where the governments are really getting more friendlier to Israeli government. That's why Bibi Netanyahu visited these countries. That's why in the recent days President Zeman announced his will that he wants to move the Czech Republic embassy to Jerusalem. So the Visegrad countries, the Eastern European countries, are not anti-Semitic anymore, and they are, I think, the biggest allies of Israel in Europe. And that's why Caroline Glick said that the most safe place for the Jewish in Europe is Hungary.
Right, and I'm glad you said what you said, because I say that same message. You're not saying, and I don't say, that anti-Semitism does not exist on the right. It still exists, and it still exists in Hungary.
Yes.
Like the what's the name of the party?
Jobbik?
Jobbik. Like Jobbik supporters.
UKIP is another.
Sorry. That's great.
I would.
Sorry. The Jobbik supporters who voted for it in the past still live in Hungary, so they still are there. But on a daily life, there's not as much of a fear, and the threats is not felt as before. And again, I just want to tell everyone, Sara and Matt, they're not just talking as Christians about Jews. They have skin in the game, and we were talking beforehand, and they were mentioning that when this other party, Jobbik, was on the rise, and they were on the forefront fighting against its growth so that Hungarians would not vote for it in the last Hungarian elections, they personally were threatened, and the Christian Zionist community in Hungary believed that if Jobbik came to power in Hungary, they would have to leave Hungary together with Jews, because it would be dangerous for them as well as Jews. So they have skin in the game, and I believe that gives more credence to really what they're talking about. They have thrown their lot with us because they stand with Israel, and it's important to hear what they have to say, I believe. And I wanted to go into that next issue because in terms of the immigration, because again, that is an issue. The fact that Hungary is closing its borders to the Muslim migrants. You have the progressive left in Western Europe and America, including the progressive left in the Jewish community, saying, that's proof. Hungary's racist. Hungary is anti-Islam. Hungary's against the natural right of migration. And Hungary's far right. So, again, you touched upon this, but please go into it deeper. And also, I think you can use that to talk about the connection that many more Hungarians today feel towards Israel than maybe beforehand and with today's government.
I would... I don't know how to start it, but usually when we are being criticized or the government is being criticized about closing the borders, it's definitely false, because we experienced firsthand that the maybe thousands of migrants were at a train station next to our home, and they shouted
in Budapest.
In Budapest, before.
They came in.
They came in before
closing of the border.
Yeah, before closing the borders, and they were shouting "Allahu Akbar" in the streets of Budapest. And I don't know. I am not a Jewish, but I can feel that what they would feel when they were walking in that street where they are shouting hundreds of Muslims "Allahu Akbar" in the street of Budapest. And for example, later we got the information that those terrorists who were attacked in Paris and Bataclan, for example,
Bataclan, Spain.
Bataclan, the
No,
club.
in Paris.
Oh, in the club
You know
in
what?
Paris, right?
It's a great. It's a
so
really
they came from Hungary.
vicious.
They came through Hungary.
They came through Hungary.
They stayed in a Hungarian hotel, for example, in our hotels. So I would definitely agree with the government to close that borders, because we are not just protecting our citizens and our Jewish communities, but we are protecting also the Western countries. We can't do anymore, because 1.5 million immigrants are already there, and we read the news about and the articles about attacking kosher shops and Jewish restaurants and so on. So it's really terrible. But we as a far right government we did great steps toward stopping this threat against Jews, against Christians, and against Hungarians.
What I'd like to add is that we had 1 or 2 months of immigrants and migrants passing through the country, and what we experienced was completely the opposite of what the mainstream media, BBC, Sky News, and other big media outlets were reporting about.
What were they reporting, and what did you witness?
I will give you just a few examples. We've seen that those who came in, the majority of those who came in, came from Pakistan, where you don't have wars, you have poverty. And I'm all for helping those who come from war-torn territories or countries. But I don't think that it's a human right that we should allow everyone that if you live in a poor country, we should help you get automatically in our country. Yeah. And I think the main problem is that with mass immigration, you cannot really do a background check, cannot really know who you let in the country and what are their intentions. And we saw that we were trying to help those who came into the country. We gave them food, we gave them supplies, and if they didn't like it, they just throw it out of the window, and they demanded things, not ask for things, but demanded trains, demanded buses, demanded roads to be closed for them to be able to pass from Hungary to another country. And and for weeks we couldn't use normally our train system.
Wow. No, I never heard this.
We couldn't use some highways we had because they were walking in the middle of the highways, so we couldn't use those highways. And you know, we always heard from Western European countries that you should allow this to continue because they are just passing through. They won't stay in your country. So what they didn't get is how it made our everyday life almost impossible because we had to go to work and other things. And also, if many of these migrants didn't get what they demanded us, they became aggressive.
Towards the locals.
Not always the locals. Towards policemen.
Throwing rocks or attacking, beating, violence.
Yes, and another thing we realized is that they were relatively calm when there were no cameras around, and when they saw a BBC or a CNN camera nearby, they caused some unrest.
Really?
To create news. And I saw it with my own eyes, and I couldn't believe it that what I've been hearing about, that it's happening in Israel.
Right, we call it Pallywood, right?
Pallywood,
Put on shows for the cameras.
And I just saw it, the same thing in Hungary, and I just couldn't believe that they would do that.
For example, at the border, there was a big attack by migrant men with weapons and the stones and stuff like that. But when the Sky News camera was there, an NGO helper were bring in front of the camera a crying lady and a baby, while next to them, for 100 meters, throwing rocks and smoke and so it's
you saw this with your own eyes.
It's really big lie.
Just recently, a video is going viral here in our conflict with the Arabs. It's an old Arab man standing on the sidewalk screaming at soldiers, right? And he's on the sidewalk, right? The sidewalk next to the street. It's a little above.
Yeah.
And you see him walking backwards, little by little, and the soldiers are just standing there. They're not paying him any attention. And he's walking back little by little, and then he falls on purpose onto the street. Okay? Because this is on camera. The NGOs and cameramen are there. And then you see the ambulance come, and then you see them carrying him off and giving him treatment. And the soldiers are standing there like, what's going on? He just fell in front of them. And he fell. They must have shot a firecracker. So he fell when the firecracker went off. So it sounds like the soldiers shot him. The soldier just standing there looking at him as he falls into the street because he goes totally Pallywood, totally fake, and the Western media loves spreading all these lies.
You know, I'm a journalist in Hungary, and I usually look after searching pictures through the articles as an illustration, and sometimes I type in Jerusalem or Israel in AP images, and I just seeing crying Palestinian ladies.
Right.
I know that there is a poverty and there is a suffering in the Palestinian society, but I couldn't find even a smiling Jewish family in Israel because there isn't any picture about it.
We're not happy.
Yeah,
we're not happy. We're only the 11th happiest country in the world. But so I wanted to ask you another question, right? Western Europe, right? One of the reasons Western European leaders need all these foreign migrants and that they ignore the dangers that they bring with them is because Western Europeans are not having children. So they have no future. And to me, even if today France and Britain shut its borders down and allowed no more migrants, it's still going to be majority Muslim in another 5, 10, 15 years. Because Western Europeans are not having children and the Muslims are. So they're going to be Muslim countries. You're going to have Muslim countries in Western Europe only in a decade, right? Are Eastern European countries having enough children? Do we have to tell... is that the same problem as Western Europe?
Yes. Yes,
They
but
are or they're not having enough children?
They are not having.
They're not. Same demographic
Yes.
problem.
yes, but for example, in every 4-year term, our government there is a main issue has been named, and this term, Viktor Orban and the Hungarian government pointed out that we have to solve demographic crisis in Hungary. We have to have more children. We have to have more marriages, less abortion, and so on. So I think Viktor Orban not just used that rhetoric, but they also made some steps. For example, we now have a great financial support for new families, that if they have 3 children, then they got a bigger amount of financial support, which is really useful for example, buying a house. So it's I think it's because of globalist and multicultural ideology is behind that. Because if we believe in nationalism, and not the neo-Nazi, not the anti-Semitic kind of or racist
just the
kind
pride
of,
in your identity.
then we believe in family. Then
Right.
we believe in tradition, in values. We believe in Christian values and Judaic values, Jewish values, or just a nation state and our heritage and our history. We are caring about these things, and I think nationalism is not a wrong thing. Nationalism is the guarantee that we can protect our minorities. We can protect the freedom of the citizens and their rights also. So if I want to leave my religion, then I have to be nationalist because it's the guarantee.
If you want to what? If you want to
to
continue your
continue.
religion,
Yeah,
you want your religion
So,
to continue, your
because-
identity to continue, right?
because in the globalist and multicultural societies,
Get rid of
they usually don't allow me to preach what I want to preach. They don't allow me. For example, in England, there is an issue that the church must perform gay marriages, for example,
Right,
and
even though it's
they can't do anything else. And
But yet Muslims can be Muslims and can be proud of their and teach everything that they want.
especially this new decision of the European Court about
that it's
you cannot
forbidden
say
anything
forbidden
bad about
Mohammed. Yeah.
And talking about the nationalism issue and connecting a pride in your identity, right? Nationalism is really a pride in your identity.
Yeah.
Those people who say nationalism and Zionism don't know what Nazism was about, because it was imperialism,
Yes.
taking advantage of looking at the Aryan race as the best race, and therefore we have to rule over the world. But that wasn't nationalism, even though they called themselves national socialists. But again, so if we're defining nationalism as a pride in your identity, right? Whether religious or national identity, doesn't make it. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu actually gave us some very interesting information yesterday, and he gave us the secret of, I guess, the survival and the success of the Jewish people. Because even though Israel is a westernized country, where in other westernized countries, if you're secular, you're basically not having children, he said that not only are the religious having children, the Jewish religious people having children in Israel, but the secular Israeli public are having a lot of children. Meaning it's the fact that they're part of our identity, our collective as a Jewish people, even though on a different spectrum of religious observance or even no religious observance, but an appreciation for family to our culture and children to our culture. And I personally have friends who are secular with 4 children.
Yeah.
And how often do you see that in other Western countries? Secular, not religious. But what you do get in Israel is, even if you're secular, the calendar of our nation state is revolving around the Jewish calendar. So her kids also, in a way, celebrate the holiday of Hanukkah and Rosh Hashanah and Sukkot, right? So they're part of the Jewish collective, even though they, for whatever reasons, they don't observe, or they observe whatever So I thought it was fabulous information he gave over that gives power to the argument of the strength in your own unique identity. Because you have what to fight, not necessarily to fight for, but what to give over and to live for. You have what to live for, and therefore a joy in having children and having families. Touching upon what you said.
Yeah. I think we have to talk a little bit more about also the future of Eastern Europe.
Let's please.
For example, we are talking about the present and we are talking about the past. And I think the future, especially we are talking now about far right and anti-Semitism in Eastern Europe. And I think in every country, in every political side, even the right and the left and the liberal and the progressive and the far right, there is anti-Semitism, and there are anti-Semitic people. There is a potential to be more radical or more anti-Semitic in Poland, in Hungary, and maybe in other countries as well.
Right.
But there is always a responsibility of other citizens, other communities, and especially the politics and the politicians to fulfill that need, to feed that anger or not. And when the government knows about this kind of potential, but they don't give any munition to that,
right?
Then it is a good government. And Viktor Orban governments in this issue, they are not feeding this kind of anti-Semitism, this kind of potential, especially when they are showing a friendship toward Israel, toward Zionism, and they share a common value of nation state and believing nation state and being anti-immigration with Israel. So I think we have to support politicians like Viktor Orban or even in other Eastern European countries, because they know that fact that if they take that munition from the potential anti-Semitic people, then they will also be gentle, or I don't know. You know what I mean?
I think what you just said was very powerful.
And I have to add that not all the Jobbik voter were anti-Semitic, and now not all the Fidesz voters are anti-Semitic and so on.
Fidesz, but that's the party of the government.
The government and an opposition party.
Right.
So it was the responsibility of the Jobbik leaders that they gave munition for that and potential anti-Semitism. Right. So I think I made some chat and made some talk with the leaders of Jobbik. I met them.
Really?
Yes, we have a new neo-Nazi party, but they are just 1%. And I met their leader. They are ex-Jobbik leaders who were moved to another smaller, tiny neo-Nazi party. And I told them, and I think they can be convinced, and they can be that we have to show them also that Israel is a natural ally to Hungary, and they are not enemy, and all the conspiracy theory is wrong and false about Jewish communities, and I think there are Jews everywhere in the whole world. Even they're communists, nationalists, imperialists, globalists everywhere. So we cannot point them out that they are the enemy of every kind. And I have to add that I think there are better solutions for fighting anti-Semitism rather than just demonize Viktor Orban or the wall.
Got it. So if I understand, and again, I think what Matt just said was very powerful, very important. If I could just summarize quickly and correct me if I'm wrong. No. I just correct me if I'm wrong. Basically, what you're saying, which is very correct, is on the one hand, anti-Semitism exists and it will continue to exist.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a message I give across. Also, it has always existed. It will always exist. It's always going to be there. However, it is wrong for people on the outside, or even Jews in Hungary, from taking that step, to call Orban and today's Hungarian government an anti-Semitic far-right government. And how you were saying it is the way to tell the difference between a far-right party that is anti-Semitic and a far-right party that is not anti-Semitic is whether or not they are feeding the flames of anti-Semitism.
Yes.
And Orban and his party and government are not only not feeding the flames, but also doing a lot of things to strengthen the Jewish community in Hungary and also strengthen ties with Israel. And that should be the guiding light we use to define all right or far-right parties in Eastern Europe, not to automatically say, oh, they're far-right, oh, they have a past, oh, they have a person, and therefore we can't talk to them, they're anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's...
Thank you for the summary.
No. I think
simple,
that was a very important important clarification. That was helpful to me. Also, something very simple, but very very good. All right, well, thank you very very much. Thank you for being activists.
Thank you
in Hungary. Thank you for supporting Israel and assisting in getting the word out about the truth about Israel to your audiences. And again, everyone who's just joining now, this is Matt and Sara from Budapest, Hungary, and they talk they're not just talkers, but they were very active in fighting against the growth of the real far-right neo-Nazi type party in Hungary, and active in stopping it from growing. And therefore, what they're talking about, today's Hungarian government comes with experience and knowledge about the real, actual dangers that exist in Hungary. Also, not just from the right, but also on the left. And that's something the other thing I wanted to point out that you mentioned, and with this we'll end, is you told me earlier, you mentioned here in the interview that that Orban was it's Orban's government, which is the first government that had a dual visit of Prime Minister Netanyahu, Israeli leader in Hungary, and the Hungarian leader in Israel. But in all the years of the left Hungarian governments, there never was such a relationship and such a visit.
Yes.
Which is very telling. Which it doesn't necessarily say anything, but it's just an important piece of information to put out there.
Yes.
That we just like people shouldn't automatically jump to conclusions that a right party is far right, don't necessarily think that a left party is not anti-Semitic or not anti-Israel.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate
any last message?
Okay, maybe just one sentence. We know that no government and no prime minister is perfect, and we still think that there are many things to criticize about Orban and his government, and we are trying to focus on the facts, focus on the actions, and examine them, and draw the conclusions after. We want to see the whole picture. We want to see the outcomes of the actions of the government and of a prime minister, and then evaluate whether we think it's anti-Semitic or not. So what we were just talking about for the last
40 minutes.
40 minutes wasn't just praising the government because we are Hungarian and patriotic, but we really looked into the facts and the actions and really the fruits of these actions, and we concluded that that we think that it was never a case in Hungary's history that the country was so pro-Jewry and pro-Israel, and we are very happy about that.
Yeah. Right, and based on getting to know you and listening to you, I imagine what I'm about to say is correct, that if Orban or Orban's government or another government that looks like it's pro-Jewish, pro-Israel does things that do feed anti-Semitism, you will be vocal against that.
Absolutely.
Okay. We also, for example, just one little concern. We just allowed an Erdogan visit from
Turkey.
Turkey.
Oh, he just came to Hungary.
Yeah, Budapest. Some kind of really special relation between Viktor Orban and Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and they opened I don't know how to say, a turbe.
Memorial
For a Turkish dervish there in Hungary. And I don't know whether you know the history of Hungary, but we suffered a lot from Ottoman Empire and the Osman occupation, and especially because of that, and especially because of the anti-Israel policy of Erdogan,
Right.
we wrote in our paper 10 pages long criticism of Orban decision about this topic. So we are not just one-sided and close-minded. We know that there are some mistakes Viktor Orban does, but he's the leader of Hungary, and I think he leads Hungary in a good direction right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. It really has been fascinating to speak with you. You've definitely opened my mind in directions I really never thought of and didn't have this information. I look forward to being in touch with you in the future, and keep on doing the good work you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Shalom from Jerusalem. And Matt will be back. Right?
Yeah,
and we'll take him around. We're to the City of David. You got to see. He was in Gush Etzion, right? You did get to Gush Etzion. He's got to see the whole country. So he'll be back. And Sarah, you'll help show him around. And you'll let me know. I'll help show him around too.
Of course.
Got it.
Of course.
Shalom, everyone. Thanks for watching from the ancestral
Shalom.
Jewish homeland, the Jewish people here in Jerusalem. Bye.